Hey, deserving listeners, Single Life, 90 Day Fiancé. It's a spin-off of the regular show, one of the many. Let's watch. This must be Natalie going to Seattle, because I'm pretty sure that's Seattle right there. Yeah, I mean, I know that park and those bridges. Yeah, it's funny because whenever they show Seattle, they always show the Space Needle. And if you live in Seattle, that's just, it'd be like you're from St. Louis and they just show the arches. I'm guessing that's a thing, right? Or not the arches, but the arch. And by the way, if you're in an echo chamber that talks about Seattle like it's this lawless, chaotic hellhole, no, just not. Like any other big city in the world, we have issues like any other big city. And there are debates about what to do about the issues. But on the whole, Seattle is extremely safe on average and lovely and bad weather for 10 months out of the, or I don't know, 8 or 9 months out of the year. I mean, not bad. In fact, I find the weather to be wonderful. I'm born and raised. And when I go to places that supposedly have good, well, I mean, say there's portions of the California coast, like Monterey, other kinds of places like that, where objectively the weather is better there because it's warmer, but it doesn't get too hot, that kind of thing. But you go to places like, I remember thinking that Florida was like this oasis, and no offense against Florida, lovely state, but when I go there, the weather there is a problem. One, it can get kind of cold too, but when it's hot, it is so hot and humid. It is like unlivable. And the mosquitoes, now it depends on where you're at, but southern Florida in the Everglades, so many mosquitoes. And then of course you got the hurricanes, which are horrible and can kill people. And then you have these torrential rains that will come in, and wind just like nothing else, right? In Seattle, it's every day, like the worst it gets in Seattle on a, within reason is it's like, yeah, it's a little rainy and overcast, 50 degrees, 45 degrees or so. And so I would much rather have that, and then you get to places like Minnesota where it gets super snowy and cold, and, that can be lovely, but I'd rather have Seattle. It almost never snows in Seattle. Point is I think this is my city. Now, wouldn't it be hilarious if this was not Seattle and I'm just like mistaking? Find a way to yeah, good. Now, Squim is far from Seattle, so I'm always kind of confused as to why he works in Seattle, but he's like 3 hours from Seattle. I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna find a way. I'm gonna find a way to you. That stretch of highway, been on it thousands of times. I don't know. It's just kind of fun to see your hometown and a place that, in fact, my wife is probably literally right there right now because she's running an errand. And anyway, downtown Seattle, the highway goes through it. Really a pain in the butt. I mean, other cities, like I think Atlanta is like this, where the major highway goes around the city. All of our highways go straight through the downtown. Which really bottlenecks everything and makes everything just inconvenient and the traffic and unfun. I like working from home as a podcaster. Let's just put it that way.
I'm returning to ranch because Dr. Michael and he said, come visit Squim.
And she's heading north on I-5. She's actually heading towards, in my direction of Seattle. Squim is the complete opposite direction from the airport, so I don't know if this is just B-roll that they're shooting.
It's been over a year since I seen Michael. Me and Michael left not on a good term. I wanted to move on, and I did with Josh. But when war started, Michael reached out to me. He said, what can I do? And he gave me money for my mom to be able to leave Ukraine. Of course, it touched my heart. But Josh never offered his help. That's why, I don't know, I'm confused.
All right, interesting. If you're from Seattle, you just recognize they showed the same stretch of highway like over and over again. As you're heading north on I-5 heading into downtown Seattle, they just kept showing the same thing. And I don't think she's anywhere near there. I think she's actually heading from the airport to Squim, which is through Tacoma. Anyway, point is that she says that Josh didn't offer anything. Josh doesn't even know her mom. certainly Josh should have, I mean, maybe not offered money, because certainly that's a personal choice, but exhibited care. And maybe Josh did. Maybe Josh did exhibit care. I'm wondering if Natalie is, well, we know that Natalie has a lot of questions about Josh, given the kid issue and all their fighting that is going on within the first few days of knowing each other. So maybe she's having some confusion around that, which would be totally rational. And now she's thinking about Mike. Yeah, I mean, if I were her friend, I'd be like, visit Mike. Well, one, I'd go, why are you visiting Mike? Like, what's the premise? Well, she's picking up her stuff. Why would he still have her stuff?
Oh. Now we're going to the ferry.
Oh, okay. So they are, well, that stretch is there in South Seattle. And I don't know if you saw, but the Starbucks headquarters just went by. And they are heading to the ferry, which then they can go to Squim. Okay. Because the ferry is downtown, annoyingly. One of the many ferries. Anyway.
No, it was a lot. Honestly, but it eventually had to come this day that I have to visit Squim. So...
Yeah, if you're ever in Seattle, you can walk on the ferry pretty easily. It's a lovely little way to see the Puget Sound, but also the city is off to the left here, and you get a pretty good vista of the entire skyline of Seattle. Anyway, if you're visiting Seattle, because some people ask me, one of the things you can do is you can do the Pike Place Market area. It's a pretty big complex, and then you can do the waterfront area. You could do the Sculpture Park, and then you walk on the ferry, and then you have dinner either downtown Seattle or in one of the little towns across the way.
Trailer and Wood was my first welcoming place. It was not LA. It was not Josh. It was Michael and Trailer. But then we fight a lot.
I'm completely alone here. I don't know
You're
what
not
to do.
completely alone. You are fine. I am taking care of you.
Why your mom call me hooker?
My mom did not call
I'm
you that
telling
word.
you.
I cannot be here. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I do want to see Michael, to say, honestly, I'm sorry for leaving.
Oh, okay. So she wants to, well, why does she want to apologize? If she just wants to apologize for the way that things went down, they both did things that were hurtful to the other person, then great. I did a recent deep dive on apologies, and I invite you to think right now about who you might apologize to. There's probably dozens of apologies that would be helpful or good or moral or bonding with other people or fair, ethical. And we reap what we sow, right? So if you apologize a lot and you give a lot to others, then chances are you're going to get a lot. Because think about all the apologies you wish that you could receive from others. Your parents or a past partner or a friend that you had a falling out with or something. There might be dozens of apologies you want just from one person. And there's probably people that feel that way about you to some extent. And I just value it. And there's so many good things that can happen. You don't lose something when you apologize typically. You can, but you don't typically. You typically gain something. You gain peace of mind. You gain a feeling of being a good person. You gain a relationship back because of reconciliation, because of your apology. You probably will get apologies back from that individual. I just think you can release yourself of the anger. Now, apologizing and forgiveness is a process. It's not something you just decide. It can be a long process that can take years and a lot of work. But kudos to her for wanting to apologize. I'm curious. And she could do that. When her and Mike had their issues, particularly earlier on, she had a pretty good ability to say, okay, I'm sorry and I'm wrong. Eventually, though, her apology seemed like she was just going through the motions. I think a lot because Mike wouldn't reciprocate. So I don't think that was Squim that they just showed. I mean, I'm not terribly familiar with the bridges of Squim, but let's rewind that. That's Highway 99. Queen Anne, actually one time, tragically, there was a gunman on a bus, a full bus, 25 years ago, and had shot the bus driver or was threatening the bus driver, and it was this huge bus full of people, and it went off that bridge. That bridge is actually, well, I won't go into that, but anyway, that's Lake Union. I believe where Sleepless in Seattle, which it's a fine movie, but people are constantly referring to that all the time, but that houseboat is just around the corner. Why would you shoot Seattle and then label it as Squim?
I'm good. I'm just working.
Oh, nice.
What's going on?
I'm in the wood.
Things just seem like
Yeah. I haven't been on screen for like a lot. And it feels like back to where I started. Josh knows I am in Squim. It's complicated the way it is.
so. I'm really interested to see how this is gonna go. I mean, like to, I guess, have a follow-up conversation and see how it went.
All right, so Natalie is checking in with Josh. I don't know exactly why. Perhaps to just get some support, or maybe even just reassure Josh that she wants to be with him, because she could predict that, well, maybe Josh will feel jealous and worried that I'm going to hook up with Mike or something. And so, you know, she's checking in with him.
I want to say that you just, the way you talk to me like a friend.
Well, I feel like you're confused and it's making me confused. And so, like,
she is saying something here that is interesting. She's saying, you know, talking to me like you're a friend. So this is par for the course for her. There's a lot of different ways she could respond to him in this moment. I'm guessing what's happening for her is that she feels like, okay, well, so let's get specific here. I bet you anything for Natalie, what she would want from Josh is a strong indication that Josh is 1,000,000,000% into her. And if he were 1,000,000,000% into her, he would be worried about her meeting up with Mike. And partially, I think, because of her attachment injuries and schemas and personality, but I think also, not necessarily culturally, but at least the way she sees the world, that you should never be friends with your exes. And if you are, it's questionable and frowned upon because something might happen. So, and I think there's probably a gender part to that as well, that men should be particularly possessive, and if they're not, they must not really love you. Anyway, so let's rewind this, because I think that's what's happening right now.
I guess have a follow-up conversation and see how it went.
I want to say that you just, the way you talk to me like a friend.
And there's so many other ways to bid for connection or reassurance. She could say something like, hey, so could you, I don't want to accuse you of anything, and it could just be me, but you seem to be reacting to me meeting up with Mike in a kind of relaxed manner. No problem with that. It's nice that you're supportive, but it makes me worried that maybe you don't really love me. No, that's on me. Those are my feelings. Could you reassure me? Or another possible angle that could be happening right now is she could say, like, well, I'm going to meet up with Mike, and it kind of feels like maybe I'll have some feelings for him, and that kind of worries me because I don't want to lose you, and I certainly don't want you to think that I'm doing something bad and then you reject me, because I don't want to be rejected by you. I don't know. There's just so many other ways she could be framing this other than it's a mild accusation, right, to him, which happens a lot. We've seen it on camera a lot. I can't imagine how often she's doing this to him in real life, which is a very common thing for people with these kinds of relational traumas, betrayal, abandonment traumas. So, and then he responds in the way that he does, which is great. I mean, the way that he responds, it's because there's not a lot of ways out of that, right? Because one way that one could respond to this is to be like, what do you mean I'm talking to you? Why are you always accusing? Like, it'd be totally irrational for someone in Josh's position to be like, why are you always accusing me of shit? You called me, I'm at work, I'm supporting you. If anything, I'm being super cool about this. You're meeting up with your ex. I don't even know exactly why, but fine. I'm doing something wrong. Is that what's happening right now? Like, I'm doing, it'd be normal for that to happen, right? Because you just get so, I'm not recommending you say that, but you know, it'd be rational. Or for him to say like, what do you mean? I don't understand. I'm just talking to you. We're dating and we're talking. What should I have said? But he doesn't. He says this.
Well, I feel like you're confused and it's making me confused. And so like, I mean, it's confusing to me, but I'm hoping that I'm going to see you in LA and we can see where you stand with everything.
Oh my God, I see trees, familiar trees. It looks like I'm almost there.
Yeah. And usually I'm pulling for people. I'm, you know, hoping that things will work out, but I don't know. I just can't imagine things are going to work out between Natalie and anyone until she gets a significant amount of insight into her issues and healing. I don't know if I'm right about that, but I just have to kind of remind myself of that because I'm always like, oh, hey, you know, but then I don't know if anything's going to help until she gets a significant amount of help for her issues, which she totally deserves. We all do.
Hi.
All right. We have to wait till next time to see what happens. She started to cry, which makes total sense. I mean, it's an emotional moment for both of them. So I guess we'll find out next time what happens. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.